es algo que enorgullece muchísimo a Deborah y que nos enorgullece también muchísimo a nosotros por tenerla aquí en nuestro país. Aquí está, ahora sí. Así que les pido un fuerte aplauso para ella. Voy a seguirles hablando de ella, pero un fuerte aplauso por este reconocimiento que hoy comparte con todos las personas presentes aquí en Tijuana Innovadora. Y bueno, ella es caracterizada por ser una mujer decidida. Desde muy joven se comprometió con diversos grupos de beneficencia orientados al bienestar del ser humano. Nacida en Brooklyn, Nueva York, en 1920, actualmente se le considera como una de las activistas y filántropas más influyentes del sur de California, en donde radica. Deborah se casó con el filósofo húngaro Edmund Bordeaux y ambos abrieron en Tecate, Baja California, en 1940, el Rancho La Puerta, este espacio que se convertiría en un oasis para aquellos en busca de alternativas naturales para el cuidado de la salud y de la belleza. Y todas aquellas ocasiones que ustedes escuchan que en Baja California estaban grandes estrellas o grandes personalidades de todos los ámbitos en Tecate, no nos preguntamos cómo en el pueblo mágico y qué hacían por allá. Bueno, en la mayoría de las ocasiones están precisamente en Rancho La Puerta. Ha participado a lo largo de su vida en diversas agrupaciones no lucrativas. Fue fundadora en 1978 de Combined Arts and Education Council of San Diego County, COMBO por sus siglas en inglés. Este organismo logró reunir la cantidad de $25 millones para apoyar varios proyectos de arte y cultura, entre ellos la reconstrucción del Old Globe Theater. También fundó en Escondido, California, el espacio The Golden Door, la Puerta Dorada, spa que tiene como principio el respeto por la naturaleza para alcanzar el equilibrio y armonía del cuerpo, la mente y el espíritu. Deborah Szekely ha sido delegada en la UNESCO y de la Comisión Interamericana de Mujeres. A sus 94 años sigue activa en la búsqueda de políticas orientadas a la sustentabilidad y el bienestar, tanto de las personas como del planeta que habitamos. No en vano ha sido nombrada por la prensa internacional como la abuela guerrera del bienestar. Démosle por favor la bienvenida con un muy cálido aplauso a Deborah Szekely.
No necesita esa, porque no necesita esa, se puede quitar. What you call vertically disadvantaged. I'm a little bit short, so I don't need all this. Nice to see you all. Nice to be here. Thank you for the introduction. I have a lot to say. In some ways, I'm a historian. I have been in Baja California for almost 75 years. Next year, June, will be my 75th anniversary since we arrived. So I thought I'd tell you... So I thought I'd tell you and show you some pictures of the old days and new days. And they're wonderful, all of them. So I'm honored to be here today and to introduce you to your state of Baja California, talk to you about early San Diego. They're all one. They're all connected. I'm speaking in English because I'm not used to speaking in public in Spanish, and I thought I'd do a better job this way. At 92, almost said 82, at 92, speaking as a historian is to be expected. But with my background and my perspective, worrying about the future is also to be expected. In a few moments, we'll speak more about what I consider to be invisible borders between languages, people, cultures, and countries. But first, let me tell you how we came to Baja California in 1940 and what led to our marvelous, unlikely, wonderful future here on both sides of the border. I arrived in Tecate when I was 17 years old, newly married, to a man twice my age, a man who was quite famous. He was known as the Professor, and he was a prophet of health. Edmund Szekely traveled on a Romanian passport, but he was really from a historic region called Transylvania, so he was really Hungarian. And he had been hosting health camps around the world, talking about fitness and wellness and philosophy, and in a way, a religion of philosophy and a religion of health. And he experimented with diets and exercise regimes throughout the world. And my family, my parents, attended several of these while I was growing up. And we even attended one in 1935 in Ciudad Victoria in Tamaulipas, and that's where I learned to speak Spanish. My parents were what you would call health nuts. They were both immigrants to the United States from Europe. My father went into the garment business. I've got to straighten this out. And my mom was a nurse. And in those early years, she was vice president of the New York Vegetarian Society. So I always began as a health nut. During the Great Depression, there was nothing to eat in New York but bananas. And that wasn't a great diet for a health nut, fruitarian, vegetarian. So one day my mom said, "We're leaving." And my dad said, "Where to?" And she said, "Tahiti." And my dad said, "Where's that?" And she answered, "I don't know, but here are the tickets." She decided to go as far as she could possibly get from Brooklyn, New York. And that was as far as her money went. That was where, I mean, when finally we talked about why Tahiti, she said, "Well, I couldn't go any further. I would have gone if I could have had enough money." So anyhow, we lived in Tahiti for 5 years. And in many ways, it was a training for the life I was to lead. I didn't know that at the time. We had no electricity, no running water. We had to carry water about what would be a long city block. The toilets were built over the lagoon, and we cooked on either wood or kerosene when it was stormy. But it was beautiful. And I went to school there, and because I didn't have a lot of things together to play with the kids in Tahiti, I became a bookworm, and I became an observer. And those characteristics were to change my life. We also met my husband there. He wasn't my husband at the time, of course. We met Professor Edmund Szekely. He was there as part of a French scientific institution studying migration patterns. And as time went by, he became known as being wise in the way of health. Later, when we moved back to the U.S. and lived in California, and I graduated from high school at 16, my mom wanted me to wait a year before I went to college. Well, the professor's secretary had just left, and Mom said, "That would be a good idea. Why don't you go and be his secretary?" So that's what I did. And we lived in, I'm sorry, I've got a thing. I jumped to space, but anyhow. And so we lived in Uruapan, Michoacan, for about a year. But I jumped a spot there, and it's an important spot. We were living in the United States in Hollywood when we got a letter from the Romanian government ordering him to return to Romania to join the army and fight on the side of Hitler. Well, my husband and I are Jewish, so that didn't seem like a good idea. That would have been right away to death. So we ignored the letters, and we ignored several other letters. Then one came that said his passport was canceled. And we sort of ignored that. Romania was far, far away. Here we were married, living in the States. But then we got a letter from U.S. Immigration and Naturalization, the one that can't be ignored, because it said, if we were found in the United States, June 1st, 1940, he would be deported as a deserter to Romania. Well, there we were, totally unprepared. We had planned to go to England. My husband was at that time on leave of absence from the British International Health and Education Center in Leatherhead in Surrey. And I was going to go to college while he was going to take on his job. All this had been planned, but we hadn't planned for the war. So we had no choice. There were other people like us in that same situation. Those with money went to Canada. Those without money went to Mexico. And we were in that group. All we had was £1,000 from his publishers in England and a letter saying this is the last money they could send us. So we left. We loaded in an old car. This was 1940 with all our worldly possessions. We crossed the border in Tijuana. We drove east into the mountains, there to hold the next summer health camp, which had been scheduled for Elsinore, California, with guests due to arrive in 3 weeks. We wrote them saying we'd moved the venue to Tecate, gave them a price they couldn't resist, and they came. Once we crossed, the professor, of course, could not return to the United States. Edmund had scouted the region early on his own and found a rancho west of Tecate in a beautiful valley beneath Mount Cuchuma. Cipriano Federico, one of 3 brothers who'd been given the land for service in the Mexican military, rented us an adobe casita that he had been using to store hay, and said we could use the vacant ranch land around us with its river and oak trees, vineyards, and fertile fields, all this for $50 a year. That summer, we welcomed our first guests. We charged $17.50 a week. Bring your own tent. Everyone swam in the river. In those days, Rio Tecate, you could swim. It was 6 feet deep. We started a vegetable garden. We had goats. We made cheese. Got local honey out of the rocks, and we hiked and exercised. And we were sort of very early, 1940, we were like 1960 hippies, but this was 1940, so we were a little unusual. From the beginning, I ran the camp and saw to the guests' needs. We were a team, my husband and I, and in the afternoon, he would lecture on the knowledge of the ancients and what was relevant to today's people. He felt they had a lot of knowledge that we could learn from. And he looked at the future darkly and warned us that we must embrace the values of a simple, natural life. Let's take a look at those days and what Rancho La Puerta became today. So that's our early Rancho La Puerta, and I'm having to get to use a new clicker, so we'll see. That's what our house looked like, one of the houses that we fixed up and made to rent for the guests, so it gives you an idea. It was early. That's me. By this time I was 18, early days of the ranch. That wooden platform behind me, we used to bake our crackers in the sun. And so that was our solar heat, way in advance. And that's my husband at the same time, Professor Szekely. Where am I going with the value? We've lost us. Oh, no, here we are. Hold on. This goes forward. There we are. That actually is not, that is a picture actually in the Tahiti, and that's my husband in those early days, and where he used to be lecturing. So that picture did quite belong in there. That is the ranch. And we were called ourselves originally the Essene School, and one day we got a letter. This box is in the way. And one day we got a letter from the Secretary of Education from Mexico City saying, if we're going to call ourselves a school, we have to be a school and have a regular curriculum. And here, these were the kind of classes we were teaching. So for a brief while, we called ourselves the Great Valley Lodge. And then we decided to call ourselves Rancho La Puerta, which was the original name of the ranch. We taught exercises of all kinds. And that was our people at that time who all assembled. We had grapes, lots of grapes, we still do. And we had little cabins made of boxes that actually had been used to ship airplane engines that we bought from Camp Lockett. That was our help in the dining room. Another class, another class. We had a library. That's the library in the background. That, you know what that is. More classes. And now we're today. Rancho La Puerta today is world famous. It is recognized as the world's best overall for 3 of the last 4 years in Travel and Leisure's Reader's Poll and #1 in Condé Nast. So we take great pride. These are just pictures of the ranch. This is what our gym looks like now. A lot different from before. And those are pictographs from near La Rumorosa. We have some very old pictographs in the background. We have cooking school. One of the things we found that so many of our women today don't know how to cook. Their mothers were the first ones who started to work and would come home and bring home a TV dinner. I don't know if this is one generation a little bit before you. And they'd bring home, and they didn't learn how to cook, and then they didn't teach their kids how to cook. So one of the important things we do today is teach people how easy it is to cook. When it's fresh, when it's simple, when it's natural. Okay, that was, now we're going to show you some things from Baja California, Norte, 1952. This comes from a newspaper called Hoy. This was, now, we got there in 1940, so we're talking about 1952. So this will give you sort of the idea of what they were looking forward. And there was Tecate, La Costa Azul, Porvenir Agricola de Tecate. So this is all the Tecate. That's my husband. Vive como quieras en el Consejo de Profeta. And that's my husband, Lakshring, and, you know. And here you find the cerveceria, which has really helped the foundation of Tecate. And this is all the various prides and joys of Baja California. You can look at the aeropuerto and what the airplanes looked like at that time. And remember the presa, Cardenas still there, and what the schools looked like. This was a big part of Tijuana's development, as you know. Weekend in Tijuana. And then you have industrias, you have all kinds of things. But it's changed a lot. Bullfights. Okay, so I just wanted you to get a feeling for what I'm talking about. So I'm going to tell you first again, this is sort of ridiculous. Let me just move this box a little bit back. Okay. We don't have a rehearsal time, so this makes these a little thing. Okay. I really want to talk to you about the time, what it was like then. I love looking back on that. Neighbors were really neighbors, and the border wasn't important. We really didn't pay much attention to it. And I had a donkey, big white donkey called Maximilian. And he used to go back and forth across the border all the time. And I would get a call from Potrero or Dulcero and say, "We have your donkey." And we would have to go with the car and slowly come back. It used to take us 2 hours while the donkey walked alongside. But there was a whole different kind of feeling. You know, it was just thing. And the newspapers wrote a story about Maximilian. He was really quite famous in his day. But we had purchased him. We had seen him, my friend and I, Betty, carrying a tremendous load of wood, taller than he was. And we felt so sorry for him. So we thought he'd be useful around the ranch. Well, he wasn't. He was useless. But we got to meet a lot of our neighbors who would call us and tell us, oh, we have your donkey. And everyone, there was no borders. And I told you that my husband had no passport or papers. He was stuck on the Mexican side. And we were undocumented aliens, you know, living in Mexico. We had to worry about the migra on this side. Well, one stormy winter night, when the only light came from a kerosene lamp, and my husband went out and he saw what he thought was our pussycat, so he went to pick up the cat and take him into the house. But the pussycat turned out to be a wildcat. And everyone told us, and he was bit several times on his arm, and everyone said only rabid wildcats come down so close to houses because they don't like people and they stay away. So it was important to have rabies shots. And we couldn't find any in Tijuana or Tecate or any place. The only place we could find rabies shots was in Camp Lockett. There was an army camp in Tecate, in Campo, 16 miles away. So I don't know, but I guess I must have cried. And the immigration authorities took pity. And for 5 weeks, every week, we would drive to the border. The head of U.S. immigration would go sit in the back seat of the car with my husband, who had no papers, and we would drive to Camp Lockett. He would get his rabies shot, and we would come back. Those things, we were neighbors. Vecinos help one another. Así es la vida. Estaba tan informal. Todos estábamos amigos. Estaba muy especial tiempo. And during the war, I love telling these old stories, there was gasoline rationing, and I didn't know how to drive at this time. And so I used to go shopping in San Diego on the San Diego-Arizona Eastern Railroad. And I would come back with all my boxes, packages, and everything. Well, the train didn't stop at Rancho La Puerta, where there was a little side road. So the train, rushing down the world, would slow down so I could jump off the train. 2 conductors would give me I would run and they would hand me a package and I'd run and I'd put it down, and along the train it was running very, very slow. They would toot their horn 3 times to tell the ranch that I was there with my packages, come and get me. Those things don't happen anymore. So you can see why I enjoy thinking of those early days when there was no border and there was all neighbors. And then the most important story of all, the one I really love telling about, I'd been in San Diego and I crossed the border very early from Tijuana, and I drove by El Florido, where President Aleman used to have a retreat home, his summer home. And it was early in the morning, but already every 50 meters, cada 50 metros, there was already a soldier standing in front. Well, that meant the president was there. Nobody knew he was there, but the soldiers are there, the president got to be there. So I rushed to Tecate, rushed to the ranch, told my husband to put on a suit and jacket. We're going to go see the president and see about his papers. My husband said, this is a waste of time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He grumbled all the way. We got to El Florido, about 10, 15 miles away from the ranch. We said, there was no cars, nobody. We drove up the driveway. A young man came out. And he said, ¿Qué busca? I said, queremos ver al presidente, por favor. So he took us in, and the president was having his coffee. It was early in the morning still. We told him our story, that here we were, that we loved Mexico, and we loved Tecate. what we were doing, what our dreams were for Rancho La Puerta and for the town of Tecate. He asked a young man to come in from the back room. He said, give us your date, statistics, some information. We thanked the president. We left. And my husband grumbled all the way back, oh my goodness, that was a waste of time. I told you it was a waste of time, et cetera, et cetera. 2 weeks later, we got a call from the Presidente Municipal in Tecate, say, will you come in and get your fingerprints? Within 6 weeks, my husband was a citizen of Mexico. Those are the things that I love about the past. There were so many of these stories of wonderful neighbors and wonderful things that happened on both sides of the border. Everyone respected what we were trying to do in Tecate, what we were trying to build, and everyone helped us. The problems the young lady spoke of before me, we didn't have any. There we were trying not to make money, but to make people healthy. We were involved with the town. We were helping to clean up the river. We were doing all these projects and building parks and helping and building playgrounds in the schools. And that abiding friendship is still there. There still is that feeling, we're neighbors. And that line needs to become less significant. And it's not the fault of the Mexican side. It's these situations that are beyond us. But where we can, it's so important to remember that it's just a line that divides us, that the birds in the heavens can't see that line, and find ways that we can cross it and make friends with one another. There's a whole future out there. To look at my notes as I go on. To give you a perspective, in 2010, the census recorded Tecate's population at just over 100,000. We are in the context of Mexico's overall population of almost 120 million, still a small town. Tijuana's population in 1940, when we arrived, was 16,486. Today it tops 1,300,000, and some people tell me it's closer to 200,000. It has become a true global city, a hub of commerce, a hub of culture. During these years, Rancho La Puerta also grew. We estimate that over the course of 75 years, we've served close to 350,000 guests. And we believe that every one of their lives has been somewhat improved by their stay. From day one, we've been a fitness resort, and our motto has been to make healthy people healthier. The professor used to greet all the guests with his famous siempre mejor. And when people are healthy, vigorous, and strong, and always better, watch out. They can and will change the world. I'm an optimist. And I think I'm living proof. So that although I'm 92, I feel like I'm 62, and I'm busier than when I was 32. The real difference is that I'm wiser. The real difference is that I am wiser. And because of that, I'm very worried about the future of our people. This is what I talk about when I speak in public. For I feel strongly that we all are an endangered species. I honestly believe that we are all being poisoned by an increasingly industrialized society dedicated to replacing natural foods with man-made foods. It's not only about humans, but also about the world we live in. Innocent people of all ages are usually not aware that being in good health takes a great deal of self-awareness and knowledge and day-to-day courage. It starts with the realization that the wonderful body in which we know what to do naturally, if only we respect it. But try as we might, and many of us here do live good and prosperous life and try much harder than most, our bodies are constantly under attack. We begin with the beginning, the newborns, the ultimate innocence. Since 2009, many independent tests have found over 287 toxic chemicals in a newborn baby's umbilical cord. Some we know are common everyday items like water and baby bottles. BPAs were reaching newborns via baby bottles. Everyone was feeding their children, all of you. And canned baby food containers had liners of BPA, and some of them still do. And there have been changes, but not nearly enough. If we begin life assaulted by natural chemicals, I shudder to think what the body burden must be for each one of us. We, for all our lives, have been exposed to untested chemicals. How weary our body must be fighting all the cumulative effects from many of the 80,000 chemicals in use today. There are 80,000 chemicals. And most of these have never been tested. Toxicity data on tens of thousands of these formulas does not exist. There's a privacy law. They don't show the government what's in it. Even more alarming, regulators still have not learned and may never learn what happens when different chemicals, when they're enclosed, locked together in one body. And in the one body are dozens of these chemicals. We don't know if they work or they don't, whether they fight or each other, whether it's okay. In the United States, which is supposed to watch for all these things, the Toxic Substance Control Act was last done in 1976, 38 years ago. That's the last time the Congress of the United States looked at the chemicals. We have our own form of mordida, the chemical companies. They support the congressmen, they support the whole system, and no one looks at it. In 38 years, only 200 chemicals have been tested for safety, and only 5 have been banned or restricted. Today in Europe, they no longer tolerate the possibility of their people being poisoned. European consumers and their governments are fighting President Obama's new trade agreement because they don't want people to share our fate. And they refuse to feed their people U.S. meat, grains, and all other agricultural products. So the Europeans are way ahead of us in health. The United States is the sickest nation in the world with the most expensive health product. And Mexico now, of course, beat out the U.S. for the title of the fattest. Mexico is the home of Coca-Cola. More Coca-Cola is consumed in Mexico than in any other country of the world. And you're about to receive on your store shelves green Coca-Cola, which is, they're not saying a salad in a bottle, but it's supposed to mean that Coca-Cola, that bottle of sugar, 8 teaspoons of sugar in a bottle, is your salad. In Europe, they want their elders to be like me, enjoying every day in good health and living creative lives, rather than to watch the elders waste away, diminished by chronic illness. I believe that most illnesses are caused by the cumulative effect of what I call smidgens, tiny, tiny amounts of chemicals, day after day, year after year, that affect every function of the body. and even more sad. We are depleting nature's body as well. Mother Earth, once destroyed, cannot be reclaimed. Experts warn that in the United States, 1 acre of arable land is lost to development every minute of every day. 1 pound of meat requires 2,000 gallons of water and produces 58 times more greenhouse gases than 1 pound of potatoes. It takes 700 pounds of grain to produce 7,000 pounds of grain to produce 1,000 pounds of meat. We're going to have to become vegetarians. And particularly, there's one good thing about the water drought. It's going to get so expensive, you're all going to start being vegetarians. You'll have meat. They used to talk about chicken in the pot on Sundays. You're going to have meat once a week on Sundays. It's in the cards. That's how we will cope with the water shortages. Because the amount of water to grow the hay to feed and the corn to feed the cattle is going to make us a lot healthier. And the basic fact is that 1/3 of the U.S. economy profits from making people sick and fat. I don't have the figures for Mexico, but it's very similar. The food industry sells products scientifically proven to kill more people than cigarettes. Sugar. While our healthcare industry profits from providing care focused on medication and procedures, not better health. I unfortunately believe it's very much the same in Mexico as it is in the United States. We are in this together. Our people, regardless of a line on the map, are our most precious asset. Lifestyle-induced chronic disease is on the rise and accounts for nearly 80% of healthcare costs. Nearly 70% of the U.S. population is overweight or obese. 1 in 4 teenagers have pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes, up from only 9% in 2000 and almost 0 in 1960. So 50 years ago, diabetes was unknown. Here and there, there'd be an older person. Well, think if we don't make change, what it will be like 50 years from now. If in the past 50 years, 1 in 4 teenagers, that from 0 to 1 in 4, when you start looking ahead, and I do at my age, you really will see that we must make changes. No one disputes that diabetes is a disease of lifestyle and eating. Well, who's going to do something about it if we don't? There's no one now but us to begin looking seriously at that future. Right now, it's like a train barreling down a track, a bus on a cliff edge, a canoe over a waterfall, each one filled with my loved ones. I can't stand just watching this all happen. And so I thought, well, what can we do? For 74 years of my life, I've worked to make healthy people healthier. Rancho La Puerta and the Golden Door, standing side by side with incredible staffs, have affected the health of 500,000 people. We have convinced them, as I hope you will be, that people have the God-given right to do what they believe will keep them healthy and not be undermined by unseen, unknown, untested hazards. Well, 500,000 people today is only a drop in the bucket. Today our society communicates at lightning speed. A cat doing somersaults may be watched on YouTube by tens of millions of viewers in a day. My recent project lives in a virtual world, but I seek real change. I started a website, wellnesswarrior.org. Wish you would remember that, wellnesswarrior.org, as a movement and an information source that gives everyone, from health professionals to everyday citizens, the knowledge to make educated choices, about how to live a life that prevents disease by stopping the hidden hazards that surround us daily. Some of the solutions are pretty simple. The first one is prevention. Beware of everything in a box, bottle, and can. It means that that food stuff has been put in a giant vat, pulverized, mixed with chemicals, put in boxes, go on a shelf in a grocery store. 6 months later, you take it home and you think you're having a good meal. That food is not alive. I talk about the aliveness in food. You know, when it's freshly picked, whether it's from your garden, from a farmer's market, it's the world of difference. It's the difference that made your grandparents healthy. They didn't have the diabetes. They didn't have all these problems. So when you begin to look at your food, begin to think, is this alive? Does this have the vitality to give me the strength and energy to go through my day, to be creative, to have wonderful ideas? It's hard to do that when you're sick and tired. So aliveness is food. It is most alive when it's picked from the tree or plucked from the ground. And every mile and every hour and every day, that factor is reduced. It will make you think twice. If you adopt that feeling, that theory, it will make you think twice before you go to the market. And one trick when you go to the market, throughout, particularly in the United States, there's tremendous waste. They say 1/3 or more of food that we grow is wasted, while there's whole people and whole countries that don't have enough food to eat. When you go to market, really know how many people you're shopping for and how many meals. Are we going to be lunch every day, or 3 days, or 4 days, or 2 days, or no days? How many dinners? I mean, really, you want the food fresh. You don't want it to lose its value in the refrigerator. So pay attention to the quality. The quality of your life depends upon the energy you get from that food. Begin looking at it and say, is this what my body wants? Will my body be able to use this well? Will this make me strong and healthy? It's up to you. Think again strongly about, is that food alive? Is it going to keep me alive? It's so easy then to cook and prepare. And Mexico has wonderful regional cuisines, wonderful cooking customs. I have traveled throughout Mexico, and you and I know how lucky we are here. It's hard to know how our chemicals, thank you, it's hard to know how soon we can affect government policies, but our present president in Mexico is working on that. I have great faith in the taxes that he's put on the soft drinks and on the cookies and cakes and things, but we have to do more. We have to teach our children to visualize where their strength comes from, where their life comes from. And finally, when you sit down on a Saturday morning with your morning coffee, I'd like you to click on Wellness Warrior, my website. I'd like you to read everything on health in the newspapers. The media is way ahead of us. They do report, and they do have good things. You know, when you hear or see green Coca-Cola in your stores, protest. You know, the poor people who don't have the knowledge think, oh, there's my vitamins and minerals. I don't have to eat fruits and vegetables. I've had my green for the day. All these diseases can be prevented. All the things that most of the people suffer from. We all know that obesity is the wrong food and lack of exercise. We all have to fight together to get the message that health is our birthright. We're made to be healthy. Sickness is not required. So it's been a long journey, and thank you for going along with me, talking about early Baja California and Tijuana and Tecate, and talking about today, and talking about my favorite subjects. I want you all to be joyously healthy and enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you.
Do you want to answer questions?
Yes.
In case somebody has some. Okay. ¿Alguien tiene alguna pregunta que le quiera hacer a Débora? Si gustan levantarse y por ahí les llevan el micrófono o solamente hablar muy fuerte. ¿Alguien? ¿Algún comentario? Por favor.
I personally, the question was, what do I think about microwaves? I personally just don't like them. I have one in my house because I have a houseman. He said he had to have a microwave for his coffee. I don't drink coffee much occasionally, so I let him have it. But otherwise, I personally do not use it at all. But I just don't think all that energy is necessarily good for us. We don't know what has created the sickest civilization so far. But there we are.
¿Alguien más? ¿Alguna otra pregunta? No? Well, thank you so much. If you want to come up to center stage and don't leave us yet, vamos a pedirle de favor a don José Galigot, presidente de Tijuana Innovadora. Por allá había otra pregunta. Perfecto, perdón. Solo muy fuerte. Ahí va el micrófono.
What do you think about the agreement between the World Bank, Monsanto Company, Kellogg's, and McDonald's about the business for 2050 about the world food?
I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
Al final, ¿qué fue lo que dijiste al final?
There is a plan for international food distribution.
Yes.
For 2050 between these companies.
Yeah, I don't know much about it. So I've read a little bit about it, but I really don't. I'm not educated enough to comment on that. I'm sorry.
¿Alguien más? Okay, so that was the last one. Ahora sí vamos a pedirle a don José Galicot, presidente de Tijuana Innovadora, a Jaime González Luna, vicepresidente de Tijuana Innovadora, que nos acompañen aquí en el escenario. Y el regidor Héctor Riveros está por aquí. Regidor, por favor, si nos acompaña también aquí en el escenario. Don't leave us yet.
Okay. Good to see you again.
Muy good to see you. Vamos al centro. Come on to the center.
Tener a Débora aquí es un super lujo. Y una vez estábamos en la cava del Culinary Art School.
Yeah.
Y entonces tuvimos que bajar las escaleras. Y ya cuando íbamos subiendo, entonces le puse la mano así y me dijo, no, yo puedo sola. Y salió. Pero lo que no sabía es que yo quería que me ayudaras tú.
Oh. I'm sorry. We'll do it again.
Yes.
I'll help you out.
Okay. Es una mujer encantadora, es una mujer de ejemplo. Ha logrado algo que a mí me maravilla en la forma que tiene coherencia en su vida. Lo que ella predica, eso es lo que vive. Y lo ve uno, no nada más en ella, en su persona, lo ve en la forma en que trata a sus empleados, en la forma... O sea, uno va al rancho y parece como que todos estuvieran en el spa todo el día ahí con el masajito, porque todos están contentos, se llevan bien y la quieren, la adoran como su mamá, todos. Es un honor, it's a pleasure, it's an honor to have you here, Deborah.
Muchas gracias.
And thank you for your
Hay
time.
un segundo ejemplo. Nosotros vivimos en el mismo lugar, en esta área, donde está la puerta. La puerta está en un lugar lleno de piedras y un lugar en Tecate. Ella hizo con su magia, con su esfuerzo, un paraíso donde todos vivimos. ¿Por qué ella logra hacer un paraíso en un lugar y hacer una mina de oro y ganar mucho dinero? ¿Cómo lo puede hacer? Pues con la voluntad, con el carácter, con la inteligencia. Fíjense, en el lugar donde, en la Rumorosa, la mujer hace un paraíso y un spa precioso. Débora, le va a dar algo.
Gracias.
Thank you so much.
Gracias. Thank you. It's a treasure.
There is something else that we have to do.
You have to
Okay.
give me this back
Okay.
and these papers back. I will take your papers.
Okay. There's my glasses. Okay.
Now I need your ring. No.
Okay, I accept.
Ok, ustedes ya saben, le vamos a hacer 1, 2, 3.
Deborah Szekely, un honor. Nos trae toda
Gracias.
su juventud y su
Gracias.
energía.
Thank you. Thank you.
What's yours?
Okay, thank you.
Amigos, esto continúa, nos queda día y medio. Ha sido un evento gigante.